Welcome back. This is Rick Kogan, and as you know, this show is called After Hours. And as you also know, I don't devote a lot of time on this show to anything to do with business, because those of you who know me know that I barely know how to balance a checkbook, even in this internet age. I can barely do that. But I met in an elevator this very nice young woman who started talking about what do you do? And she says, well, I'm starting this company. And so, in studio is NIN Desai, a young, what do you call yourself, NIN?
Venture capitalist.
You call yourself a venture capitalist? What do you think of that whole phrase, venture capitalist? I know it's what you do, but the connotation to me, my friend J.B. Pritzker, I guess, is he a venture capitalist?
He is.
Is he a big venture capitalist?
He is huge in Chicago.
All right, before we talk about what it means to be a venture capitalist, what is your background?
I started my professional career at Merrill Lynch, working for the asset management group. Ended up, after business school, ended up in investment banking, was there for a couple of years, and then ended up at private equity firm, Alpha Capital, here in downtown Chicago. And while I was at Alpha Capital, I realized there's something wrong with the business model or the way fundraising has been done in the past. And just around that time, I would say about a little over a year ago, General Solicitation and Jobs Act came into effect. That let venture funds to publicly go out and raise money. That's how NIN Ventures, the company that I had, came into existence. So
that's a bold move for you, is it not? I mean, you seem to me to be very young. You are very young. And also, let me ask you about this whole venture capital thing with most venture capitalists, as I see it and consume the news, this seems to me to be a male-dominated world. Am I wrong or no?
Yes, you are right. When I often go to conferences and I often go to board meetings, and I often find myself that I'm the only woman in the room. Even with a couple hundred men. Turns out to be the only one. So, yeah, I'm not surprised with that statement, but that doesn't mean that the industry is biased towards women. I just think a lot of women are maybe not interested in the space.
So you start this firm, and you started with a number of guys. I'm looking at you have a nice website, too, I must tell you. You have a nice website. I don't understand it at all. But what distinguishes, there's something that, this is what really hooked me, even in a short elevator ride we had a few months ago. Your firm is unlike any other venture capital firm. How so?
So we do everything online. That's how we're different. And when I say online, so we manage, report, and raise money online. Apart from that, we have a very different LP base than what you will traditionally see in a venture capital fund. So normally what happens is, when a venture capital fund goes out and raises money, they go to institutions and pension funds and endowment funds.
Yeah.
We have actually opened ourselves to other accredited investors as well. Accredited investor is somebody who has an income of $200,000 per year, who could be your average doctor or lawyer or investment banker, and the minimum check size that a traditional venture capital fund would take would be $5 million. We have lowered that minimum to $100,000.
So you were opening, in a sense, then, and then you were opening the playing field to people that otherwise would never be able to play.
Agreed. Yes.
So when you say to someone, all right, you can get into this fund, give me $100,000. What do you do here? Let's say, Rick, I've got a great thing. Give me $100,000 and I'll make you some money. What is the great thing you're going to do with my $100,000?
So, NIN Ventures, we are interested in disruptive technology companies. We invest in Series A and Series B rounds.
What does that mean?
So when a company goes out and raises money for an earlier growth stage funding, that's when we as Venture Capital Fund will invest with a bunch of other VCs. Our areas of interest are 3D printing, financial technology, education software. When I say, maybe in simpler terms, when I say we invest in 3D printing, we'll be investing in, there are many sectors within the 3D space. So for example, you have manufacturing, consumer, medicine. We're going to invest in medicine. We recently got on board a new venture partner and a board advisor, Dr. Sunil Patel. Dr. Patel is a multi-organ transplant surgeon. his area of interest and research is tissue engineering and 3D printable materials. So, for example, he will be doing deals that would actually help save organs when you do organ transplants.
Wow.
So that might be one of our first deals. The second one that we might consider doing is in the financial technology space, not focused around, I would say, digital mining, but digital currency payments. So payment solutions is also an area of interest for us. So we invest in companies and ideas that are very unique and different.
Well, and forward thinking. I mean, it sounds almost what you're interested in investing in. And tell me I'm wrong, Nin, because I don't know anything about business at all. Is almost investing for future technologies or technologies that could explode in the future. Is that?
Yes. So we invest for long term. So our minimum holding period is 5 to 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So we have to look in the future and see what kind of companies will be able to raise money and what will be the future. So,
is this your own personal business philosophy? I mean, how does one, you know what I mean? How does one come up with a bit, or is this like a niche that's not being filled by others?
No, I believe there are many disruptive technologies and many disruptive, every industry is up for disruption at some point. I think when we as venture capitalists just have a different outlook on situations. So, for example, in 2008, 2009, we had a financial crisis. Everybody thought it was a crisis, right?
What were you doing in 2008 when this financial crisis happened?
I was working at a private equity firm. So many people were thinking of it as crisis, but we as venture capitalists thought of it as an opportunity. That's how we're different. So for me, I'm like, all these funds are struggling how to raise money because an average LP that normally writes them a check of $5 million does not have that money.
Doesn't have $5 million.
So what do you do? So I came up with NIN Ventures, which is a unique idea.
So NIN Ventures started in the wake of the 2008?
In conceptually, yes.
Yeah.
But it took a while for the Jobs Act to come into reality and action. And I think the day it came into fact, we were the first ones to go live with a website and videos and everything.
How interesting. We got to take a little break, but now that I'm getting a grasp, and I hope you are too out there listening to what you do. Now I can get some more specific questions about like how I can become a millionaire. Just joking. Welcome back to After Hours with me, Rick Kogan, doing an unusual segment for me because it's a segment about business, but I'm fascinated, of course, by the way this world runs and by the way this world might run in the future. NIN Desai is a young woman I met riding an elevator who seemed terribly pleasant and is in the venture capital business. You can go to her website, is nin.vc, and it will give you, there's a lovely thing there, and I could have stolen this to pretend that I was smart. It's a frequently asked questions section. I could have, does jobs impact, blah, blah, but I'd rather not. And what is your background? Where are you from?
I'm originally from India. I moved here for school, and then I ended up staying here in Chicago as I loved it. Love the city.
What do you think of Chicago as a hub for venture capitalists? For the 1871, for instance, my friend JB's launched incubator for new businesses. You looking at new technologies, is this a hot place?
Chicago is definitely an underserved market when it comes to technology, but innovation does not bar geography, so innovation happens anywhere. I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but Google actually started in Chicago but had to move to the Silicon Valley because we didn't really have the ecosystem to support Google or to make it grow. So I think we are at a stage now, I'm talking Google was a few years ago, but now we're at a stage where we have a lot of incubators and accelerators, a few VCs in town to fund the deal, a lot of infrastructure built around technology. So I think this is probably a great time for Chicago and technology.
Well, that's great. And then, ergo, a great time for you in NIN Ventures, too.
Of course.
When you say, how do you go about, even though you're now, your company, your enterprise makes the playing field much more level for the modest investor, the $100,000 investor, $200,000 investor. How do you find these people?
Most of it is through word of mouth. A big hand, I think, was the social media. So that's how we're different and unique. So we have videos online. We're very active on Twitter and Facebook. And I believe that has been a greater role. That has played a greater role in finding us investors. And a lot of people, when they come to us, don't really have the sophistication to invest in deals directly, but we spend the time to educate them. And we often do investor calls, which is once a month, which kind of gives them an idea of who we are, what we plan on investing in.
What you're looking at, too,
exactly.
and what you are looking at as potential investments, because you're all, in a sense, you're all in this together. Your investors are not strung out there somewhere. You're all in this whole thing together. You must have to do, you and your staff, and so all these people on your website, must have to do an astonishing amount of research to keep up, because it is in new technologies. You know what I mean? It must be an intense amount of research, constant.
Yes, we spend a lot of time on due diligence, not only internally, but we also have to spend a lot of time deal sourcing. So you'll often see me at conferences. I recently spoke at Tech Week, which was last week here in Chicago.
Sure.
I also often judge events. So, for example, startup competitions. I judged the 3D printing startup competition in New York a couple months ago. I'll be judging the Inside Bitcoin conference next weekend at Navy Pier here in Chicago.
Bitcoin is the kind of internet
currency.
Financial currency.
Mm-hmm.
What's the status of that?
Well,
I hear and have read good and bad. What do you think? I've got an expert in here.
Well, I think it's about time the world to embrace global currency, and Bitcoin actually is growing in terms of acceptance from consumers and businesses. So now even our fund, if you are a current digital currency owner, whether it's Bitcoin, Litecoin, or Dogecoin, you can actually invest in our fund using digital currency. Which is a big thing. You can order everything from pizza to you name it using digital currency. And I think and I think especially not even U.S., but if you're doing international transaction, it's turning out to be a very, I think, crucial competition to the U.S. dollars.
What do you think? As long as I have you in here, NIN Desai, what do you think of the financial crisis in Greece? And what do you make of this?
Well, I mean, I shouldn't comment much on international and countries in general.
I don't care. You know more about money than I do.
Well, I mean, I think every country has their own problems, and every country somehow has to figure out a way of getting out of it. And
You think they will?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you about the state of Illinois' financial problems. Has this been... when did you formally begin NIN Ventures?
I would say September 2013.
Was it a risk for you? You seem like such a self-possessed and confident young woman that you obviously know what you're doing, but there still had to be some element of risk in this.
Let me tell you, when we started off, we weren't sure how it was going to work out, but it has been a tremendous growth and journey for us. I believe when we first started our fund, the first people that came forward with checks were friends and family. And then I think the press picked up on us, and that has played a very crucial role. And then once the press started picking up and our social media there was enough content on the social media to speak for us, it became a very smooth journey. And now I would say we're quite confident in terms of our fundraising goals.
Well, that's great. Talk to me more about 3D printing. This is something that businessmen are not, just in terms of the world in general. This just fascinates me.
Well, so there are multiple sectors within the 3D space. So you have consumer, you have construction, you have manufacturing, you have aerospace, you have medicine. However, we have identified medicine and manufacturing to be the biggest sectors in the 3D printing space. Manufacturing, while is one of the second largest industry in the 3D printing sector, medical will be the first one to benefit from it. And in medical, I would say personalized medicine is what's going to move the needle.
What does that mean, personalized medicine?
For example, there are 5 sectors within medicine. So there is dental, hearing aid, bracing. I would say tissue engineering is one of them. So for example, you go to your doctor, and your doctor can now print your organ before he does a transplant on you.
This, I know. I'm looking at her saying, this sounds like some science fiction thing, and you're telling me it's absolutely not. They can print an organ.
They cannot print an actual organ, but tissues that are tissues that can make a damaged organ workable, or they can actually print a model of your organ so the doctor can study your organ before he actually operates on you.
You obviously, NIN Desai, have seen all of this kind of stuff in action, haven't you?
I have.
Does it amaze you?
Not really. I think as a venture capitalist, I have a very curious personality.
Yes,
I always try to push it to the extreme. So when somebody is working on an idea or a concept, I always try to push their imagination and see if they can contribute more to whatever they've been working on. But that's just a part of my job and being a VC.
One of the things I sense from knowing you just modestly is this realm, this world of venture capital, this world excites you, does it not?
It does.
As level-headed and calm as you have to be in this world, it nevertheless excites you, doesn't it?
No, because you're always learning. There's always something happening. Somebody else is coming up with a new idea, and there's something else that can be done. Just not being as a VC, but even as an entrepreneur, you're always growing. There's a sense of satisfaction. You actually invest in a company, the company grows, and we as a firm have decided to invest in socially responsible business, so that also gives a different level of satisfaction.
Yeah. What caused that decision?
I think it's
a great decision. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I think it depends on the VC and the kind of personality and interest you have. So, like we said, we invest for long term. So when we invest in a deal or a company, we're kind of stuck with the company for 5 to 10 years. And in order for us to maintain our interest, we kind of have to have some kind of interest or something that bonds us with the company or the industry or the sector. And the sectors that we have picked are probably more related to our personality and our taste and flavor.
And that whole socially responsible thing is intrinsic to what you do, right? You want to do good.
Yes, we're trying to shy away from gaming and gambling and virtual reality, which is, not saying that's not definitely great businesses. There are good valuations, and there are many companies that made a lot of money from it. It's just not something that we feel comfortable doing.
That's interesting. So when you get a potential investor, when someone calls you, you will sit there and explain in depth your philosophy of investing to these people.
Yes. And we'll also explain them in terms of how and where the money is invested and how and when they do get a return. Because a lot of people are used to investing in stocks and bonds. And stocks and bonds, you get liquidity in 5 days. And that's not the case when you make a venture capital investment. You actually get liquidity when we make an exit, via an IPO or an M&A transaction. And then after the fund makes an exit, that's when the investor gets their money back. So it's a little different game from investing in stocks and bonds, and the holding period is really long too.
It sounds I know, but it doesn't. It sounds the stock market has always seemed to me just like Las Vegas in New York. It really has. It's a lot of people who are interested in the quick buck and the whole thing. NIN Desai, I'm glad I ran into you in the elevator. I'm glad we had this talk. You've enlightened me on, not that I'm going to give you $100,000 because I don't have $100,000, but no, you make great sense. You make great sense about the future. You can get, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you right now, all manner of more information. You can see NIN's face. You can see all these nice faces of all the people who work for her. It's a nice-looking bunch. It's a nice-looking bunch of guys. By going to nin.vc. It's very simple. NIN, it's a pleasure getting to know you, and come back on when I have some business question. We'll talk about Greece or if you can figure out in the next week or two how to solve the financial crisis of the state of Illinois, don't hesitate to call me, dear. Don't hesitate to call me.
Sounds good. Absolute pleasure, Rick. Thank you very much for having me.
It was great fun. I learned a lot.